So hello everyone and welcome to our hashtag Female Boss mini YouTube series. Today I'm joined with the lovely Lucy Thomson from Coach Lucy. And Lucy launched her business back in 2018-19 and worked with British business during the early stages of setting up her business. So today Lucy continues to grow and develop her business, inspiring other students throughout Scotland to go for their dreams and to take that scary first step. So hello, welcome Lucy, welcome to our video.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm very excited about doing this.
Not a problem. Not a problem. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and Coach Lucy, and even just a little bit about how you set up the business in the first place? That would be perfect.
Yeah, so I am Lucy. I am the owner of Coach Lucy, I guess the founder as well, as you would call it. I started my business back again in 2018, kind of 2019 was when I properly launched my own business. So whilst I was at college, I'd kind of started to work in different gym venues and things like that, just kind of getting used to working in the space. So the course that I studied at college was my HNC and my HND in health, fitness and exercise. So again, that was what my course was on, and I'd started to kind of work in gyms from there. I was working in about 5 different gyms at one point as well, just kind of building up my experience and knowledge within these places and working in the industry for kind of bigger businesses, more corporate gyms. It was a wee bit harder to make sure that you had like these kind of, I guess, a set hour when I was off with college over the summer period. Like if you were trying to get a full-time job, you really did have to have a lot of different venues to be able to get those kind of hours and things like that as well. So it was from then that I'd kind of started to, I guess, explore the route of doing classes by myself. A lot of my clients in one of the gyms that I was working from, they were paying a membership to actually come to my classes. So we started to run kind of different classes. So the gym that I had worked out of, they wouldn't allow me to teach kind of classes with kettlebells and more weight training and things like that. So I had bought my own equipment, and then when the gym shut, I was allowed to teach 1 or 2 classes a week, and I get paid like £5 for it. And then the ladies that came to the class, because it was a ladies only gym, they would pay like a couple of pounds extra on top of their membership to attend my classes. And from there it was kind of a case of, they were like, we're actually paying a membership to be able to come to these classes, but then we have to pay for the classes as well. So they're kind of, but you had to be a member to be able to go to the classes. So they were spending 30, 40 pounds a month and then having to pay on top of that as well. And one day someone had kind of said to me, like, why don't you think about like just renting one of the halls, one of a local hall, and we would come there and then it'd be more money in your pocket type thing. Because I had to kind of decide, I was giving up 7-8 hours of gym hours because I had to go to work on a Tuesday and Thursday for half an hour to do a 30-minute class. And it was kind of like taking that decision of, do I stay here and continue to do this type of thing, or do I try and go out on my own? And I ended up leaving the venue that I was at and still kept on my gym work in some other places, but took that kind of first jump into, I guess, being self-employed. So I guess that's where it kind of all started. And then my business just kind of grew arms and legs from there as I started to kind of jump into some different kind of aspects of coaching and work-wise and things like that. So I never really started off as just quitting a job one day and then being fully self-employed the next day. It was something that was, I guess, very much a gradual transition for about 1 to 2 years before I did fully become self-employed.
That's quite scary, that, like you were saying, obviously, like it isn't something that is going to happen overnight for people, and it is a journey that you have to kind of slowly build up. Like obviously, like for myself, just bringing my own kind of experience into it, like I was did the similar thing last year. I was at college, and then I kind of had a little bit of an idea of a business, but like you say, it doesn't happen overnight, and it does take a lot of work to kind of put in the time to be able to make it what it is today. And obviously, as you were a student, and you were like studying at the same time as trying to set up your own business, what advice would you be able to give to like young women that are potentially looking to do the same? Like any little hints and tips that you might have for them?
Yeah, no, I think as well, like the way that I had done it myself, was personally something that was really manageable for me. So like as you
Mhm.
said, like not just jumping straight into it, like obviously you can, like that could be totally the way you wanted to do it, but just gradually for me it was a case of I went from working in 5 gyms to 4 and then 3 and then 2, and it was like you were gradually starting to let go of like
Mhm.
kind of work commitments that you had to other people, and you grew with your business as it grew, because sometimes I know it can be a really daunting thing to go from a job
Definitely.
of like you've got that's where your money, that's where your income is
Mhm.
from and things like that. And for me, I was very lucky and very fortunate to be in a position that I live with my parents. I lived with my parents at that point, so
Mhm.
it was a case of any money I earned was money that was going into my pocket. It wasn't paying for a mortgage, and it wasn't
Mhm.
like paying for all those extra things. So I was really able to go kind of all into my business and studying at the same time too. It's kind of, I guess, finding a balance. And
Yeah.
for me, when I was at college, I think people think of finding a balance as they both need to be equal. But for me, it
Mhm.
was kind of understanding that balance is, I guess, having periods of imbalance. So sometimes when the college work had been done, it was jumping a little bit more deeply into work, like of my own business, and starting to create that kind of thing, and being able to say, actually, this week I really do need to focus more on my college side of
Yeah.
work. And it is remembering, I guess, when you have these are very overwhelming and you feel like, oh my gosh, this is extremely like it's pressure that you're adding onto yourself, and sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, is this really worth it? But it's important to remember that there's always the next day is always going to be different as well. So as
Mhm.
much as you might have that feeling like the previous day before, something else happens the next day and you feel like, actually, this is why I'm reminded of why I want to do this and
Yeah.
why I want to be creative, I guess, because that's what, for me, being self-employed is about being creative. Like you get
Mhm.
to be your own creator of what it is that you want to do.
Mhm. And your own motivator as well. So no, that's perfect. Especially when you were saying the fact, about the whole balancing of something, it doesn't have to be an equal 50-50. It is okay to say, look at my priorities, look at what I'm working on, and I'm going to put a little bit more effort into this month or this week or whatever, and then focus on that at a later stage. And I think that's really important for anyone who's starting up their own business or is even new to setting up their business, is the fact that there is going to be that give and take between the projects that you're working on and your personal life and business. Because especially like you were mentioning, the fact that you could be working as well as trying to set up this business. So a lot of your time is going to be taken up by these little tasks. So it is exactly right to make sure that you're, taking the time to focus on what is most important and what's going to get you through this kind of that stage of your life or business. Um, Obviously, I'm going to kind of touch a little bit on like the sort of pandemic. So there's a few aspects I'm wanting to kind of pick your brain about. Obviously, as you sort of set up Coach Lucy, near the very beginning, kind of, or just before the pandemic was really a thing, and a lot of businesses face a lot of struggles through that time, quite understandably. However, looking at your journey, you seem to have been able to adapt and think on your feet really quickly to ensure that your customers were able to access everything that you had to offer and that they never lost out. What was that experience like, being able to sort of go through that period? Like what kind of struggles did you face and how were you able to overcome them so confidently? And you've done an amazing job.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It's nice to feel like you're almost at the other side of it now. Like
Mhm.
if something like that was to ever happen again, you feel as if you've got a bit of experience. But it was definitely, you feel as if like that period of time, like your business, instead of it just being like a couple of years old, you felt as if you were like decades old, because you had
Yeah.
to try and change everything that you're doing. And the
Mhm.
whole aspect of what our community is based on is face to face. It's like creating a community and bringing people together, and that was what we did and everything. And I had never once been on Zoom. I didn't even know what Zoom
Mhm.
was, or like Microsoft Teams or anything. And then it was just a case of, right, everybody, we're going to give out our kit. So everything that we had, we made sure somebody, you at least had a kettlebell or
Mhm.
a dumbbell, or you had a bottle of water at home if you'd like joined us later on into the pandemic when we didn't
Mhm.
have any more kit to give out and things like that. And it was a case of, right, let's just see if we can make this work from
Mhm.
home. So it was just kind of, it was very daunting and very scary, because you were a bit like, oh my gosh, you're trying to give a really personal service of a community based product, I guess, of what
Yeah.
we, and then to try and do that through video, where you're putting everybody on mute and you're not allowing everybody to communicate in the same way that they essentially would have been able to do from their own classes and personal training and kind of things like that as well. So that for me was a big challenge, to allow the community aspect of what we were doing to still be there, even though it was done remotely and from your own
Mhm.
home. So we really tried to push for things, extra things, and really develop our service, because not too many people wanted to do the other side of the
Yeah.
service. So
Mhm.
like I offer like large group fitness, and then kind of one-to-one training is one of the other end scale of what we do. So a lot of people were like, look, I like to be in the gym, and they want to have weights that they can challenge themselves and push,
Mhm.
and they've got a
Mhm.
lot more equipment. And unless you had that available to yourself at home, maybe personal training wasn't something you wanted to do through Zoom. So
Mhm.
it opened up a lot more hours for me to be able to offer a little bit extra. So we'd have things like, I mean, I'm not like a yoga teacher or like mobility teacher, but you kind of get to know sort of things
Yeah.
when you start to try other things as well. And it was just a case of, I would go onto YouTube and I would kind of do some things myself, and we would do some stretching classes. So people would then bring their husbands on, they would bring their wives, their partners, they would bring their kids, and they just jumped in some extra classes that we'd done.
Yeah.
And we just kind of like played about with things a little bit more. And after some of the classes, we'd have a coffee morning. So we'd do like a catch up after one of our stretch classes. And it was just to allow people to kind of come together. And it was when life was, it feels a bit strange now because life is at such a fast pace again. But at that time, it was a case of, you never looked at the clock. It didn't really matter what time a day it was. And you just
Mhm.
popped the kettle on, you came back after your class. And then we just had a chat about what people were up to and what they were doing. And we tried to make sure that there was loads of challenges as well. So it was a case of like, we tried to use the social media aspect as much as possible to kind
Mhm.
of encourage people to go out for a walk. Like we did like 5K throughout May. So every day
Mhm.
people walked or they ran or they cycled, and they did 5K throughout May, and they took a photo of like their Strava or their Fitbit or whatever they were doing to kind of like encourage other people to get out and get moving. It wasn't a case of just exercising from the house. And it was
Yeah.
just challenges of like health and nutrition, or show me like your lunch that you've made today, or kind of things that you're trying that are new.
Yeah.
And normally our first year we had our first year anniversary from when the business started, we had like a big party, and everybody came to, we called it the We Are One. So that was like our first
Mhm.
birthday. And then second year was obviously during the pandemic. So I wanted
Yeah.
to try and make sure that we could still make it as enjoyable. We were a good few months into using Zoom, and kind of people were struggling with that, because it began to get a wee bit harder when you were spending hours and hours each
Mhm.
day on the screen on your
Yeah.
laptop, and then you were trying to say to people, I want you to spend your Friday night for 2 hours with me on your screen. So we used other businesses. So again, a lot of the also females that come to our classes, they've got their own businesses, so
Mhm.
hairdressers, we've got bakers and things like that, so, and makeup artists, and they got involved, and they did things like, one of our hairdressers, Lydia did like a heat-free hairstyle. So she had done
Oh
some
wow.
tips and tricks on like how to do that. So it was like, get yourself party ready with like your heat-free hairstyle. And then Callie, she had done like an easy, like no bake kind of like party treat that you could bring along. And then
Mhm.
Laura had done kind of like more of a skincare. So it was like a kind of like pamper party from home. And we just tried to like involve people in a different way. And it
Yeah.
was a case of like, normally we would give out prizes and stuff, and we had like, I just had this box next to me at the dinner table, and I would pull random things out of it. I'd be like, this is Coach Lucy's water bottle. I'd be like, Megan, well done, you've won Coach Lucy's water bottle. And it was just like kind of things like that, to try and, I guess, keep people upbeat as
Yeah.
possible. Just like try and do something a bit different. And then kind of this time around for our third year, you were able to have people like outside. So what
Mhm.
we'd done was we'd done a sea dip. So we went into the sea, because you still weren't
Oh.
allowed to go inside yet. So we'd done things like that. And then for our Christmas party, we weren't allowed to have anybody together. So
Mm.
what we'd done was there's loads of different locations. I really do feel like I'm rambling on a wee bit now, but
No, you're
there's
not.
between like I guess from where we started, we use a local hall, and that's what we
Mm.
had done for a really long time. So the Meadow Green Centre is where we normally ran all of our large group classes from. So we met everybody there, and everybody went in small groups. So it
Yeah.
was like as COVID friendly and as safe
Mm.
as possible. So we met people there, and they got a bit of shortbread, and then they started their walk around to where my mum and dad stay. There's a big grassy area that
Uh-huh.
we use for classes that we could do outside.
Oh,
So for a
brilliant.
long period of time we were able to do classes outdoors, and that's where we done it from. So when they walked past like the second checkpoint, my mum had like little cups of prosecco
Oh,
and stuff like that for
that's nice.
everybody. And then they ventured and they made their way into the town where we met at Costa Coffee, like at Costa Car Park, and we had dough pizza. So we'd
Oh,
ordered like loads and loads of pizza, and we'd done a challenge last year that was called Snow Pain, Snow Gain. So that was our winter challenge. And basically, if you took part in the 8-week challenge, you got a hoodie at the end of it. So I made custom hoodies, and everybody collected their hoodie, and they had a bit of pizza, and they'd kind of it was a horrible night. The weather was absolutely
oh
horrific. But as soon
no.
as you say anything about pizza and anything about prosecco or free merch, everybody's right up for it. So
Yeah.
actually such a good laugh. Like, and it was wee things like that as well that I guess that made the pandemic kind of like, not obviously it wasn't an enjoyable experience, but you tried to
Mhm.
make it as positive an experience as possible. Instead of thinking, well, I can't do this and this, you
Yeah.
kind of focused on the things that you could do instead,
Mhm.
and how you could still provide that service for people. And
Mhm.
for myself, exercise is a way of like it's a release, it's a way of like kind of helping me feel less stressed, or it's a way for
Mhm.
me to put my energy and effort into it. So we always thought anytime that anybody came onto the screen or did a class, like you're wanting to take them away from something that potentially is going on in their life. Like they're
Mhm.
probably super stressed with work, things that are going on with family, they're trying to teach kids on the computer from home. They're still trying to do their own work from home. They're
Yeah.
trying to do a food shop. They're trying to manage absolutely everything.
Mhm.
So you wanted to be a bit of like a release and an escape for them. So it was just
Mhm.
kind of really trying different avenues of extra things. And we'd have like I started doing a podcast during the
Yeah.
pandemic as well.
Mhm.
And then we'd have like different health specialists on, and had different conversations. And then we started to do those live as well. So we'd go on like an evening, and people would be able to, we talked about different topics, and then we'd have discussions at the end of it. And it was loads of little things that you trial and error. And I think
Yeah.
as well, that's a thing about being self-employed. People maybe think that you need to do this one thing and you need to stick
Mhm.
to it for the whole entire time. There's been loads of things that we've tried, and loads of things that we'll stick with and that we won't use again. And it was
Yeah.
just, it's trial and error, and it's maybe not
Yeah.
thinking of a failure. It's just you give it a go and you see how it
See what
goes.
works, what sticks.
Yeah.
And I think that's fab. And I think it's great that you've showed that, you know, the pandemic did bring up a lot of issues. It had a lot of barriers for you, especially in terms of like actually hosting a class or where you would host it. But the fact that you've been able to set up like a platform, encourage people to get back outside, even just that little thing you were telling about the competition, the winter one, about, you know, you maybe get a glass of this, you'll get like a free bit of merchandise afterwards, that little incentive, you know, it does make them work a little bit harder, especially when it's like you're looking for their fitness kind of thing. But it also gets them more involved. They kind of feel like, oh, I'm taking part in this whole thing, and they can get
Uh-huh.
their friends and family involved. And it does make a whole massive impact on your mental well-being. And that was something that I know for myself, like the pandemic was not the best, and it was bringing up a lot of struggles in terms of like you did feel quite isolated. So the fact that you've been able to do something that kind of makes people feel like, no, I do still have someone to talk to, even though I might be in the house on my own, is a really nice thing that you've done. But just to kind of like touch on it a little bit more, just kind of how the impact has had people's mental health. You were mentioning that you know, your exercise helps you with your sort of peace of mind. Is that something that you do regularly in your spare time? Or is there something that you do that's completely different to your day job that you do that kind of helps you unwind a little bit?
So there is a few different things, and I would definitely say that quite a lot of the things that I use now to try and like wind down a bit more are things that I've learned throughout the pandemic and just
Mhm.
kind of like understanding a little bit more. I definitely think as well, being self-employed and having your own business, might not be working every day, but your brain definitely works
Yeah.
365 days a year. It's on 24/7, whether you're awake or whether you're dreaming. And sometimes I think it can be hard. It is difficult to switch off completely from your
Mm.
business because your business is your passion and it's your baby. And it's just finding like a good, as you say, balance of the two. And it's
Mhm.
okay to have discussions with people that inspire you. And sometimes that might be out of work hours and things like that as well. So sometimes actually unwinding for me from my business is maybe talking about my business
Yeah.
or things like that. But then exercise is something again that is very heavily focused on. That is what my business is. But for me, it's a chance for me to plug in my music and just like
Mhm.
not think about anything, just have a bit of time for me to feel good. Like, and you forget sometimes if you don't do it as often,
Mhm.
and sometimes you do feel quite stressed and quite anxious, so you don't
Yeah.
really know what to do with yourself. But see that just 30 minutes of exercise or 20 minutes or just moving for a short period of time, it has such a significant impact. And
Mhm.
things like going out for a walk when you're at home so much, and obviously living in Scotland, we don't always have the nicest of weather, but when
No.
you wrap up and you're out there, you do feel a lot better. So for me, it is again, exercise is one of the big ones, whether that be something gentle, as in going for a walk or just escaping the house. There's little things of I've got it next to me, I've got like a diffuser, and
Mhm.
sometimes like putting something like that on, and I use a paper diary, and for me that is a way of me like kind of like unwinding, because it's almost as if I'm putting all my thoughts down into
Yeah.
like, or the things I have to do the next day, I write them out at night time, and I just feel as if I'm emptying out my brain as much as possible so that I can get to sleep
Yeah,
and
so you
not
can
think
focus.
of anything else. And then and recently, probably about like January of this year, I'd actually invested in a journal. And I
Mhm.
know sometimes some people, it can be hard because you're maybe encouraging people to use things like that. And there's kind of two ways. Some people are a wee bit like, why do you use a journal? And then other people will be like, no, I understand. And it's not that I always put down my thoughts and feelings, but sometimes it's nice just to you really focus in on a wee bit more of like what you've done for yourself that day,
Yeah.
of how much sleep did you get, how much water did you drink, like that's the
Mhm.
things that are in my journal. And it's a case of like, what self-care did you do, and how
Mhm.
did you feel today? And it's wee things like that. And I've got this little pack of like, they're called affirmation cards, and basically every day or every night I'd pick a card, and it's like a random card,
Yeah.
and it will tell you something like, it's just a kind of, it's just a statement. And sometimes it just gives you a wee bit of like positive thinking for like the day ahead, or it gives you a kind of, I don't know, it's just something that I've,
Yeah, something to kind of focus on. Yeah. No, I think
it's
that's
finding
lovely.
things like that as well. Like not everybody's a bath person or a
Yeah.
glass of wine, like
Mhm.
or want to watch the TV, and like there's loads of different things, and it comes and goes as well. So sometimes I maybe don't use my journal for a long period of time, or maybe I do something else like watching the TV. It's kind of finding things that are for you, and knowing, I guess, it is okay if you find like you
Mhm.
don't completely switch off, because
Yeah.
I don't think you ever do when you have something that's so important to you because you
No.
are so
Yeah.
passionate about it.
Yeah. No, I completely relate to that. Like for me, obviously, like you were mentioning just going for a walk just in nature, like that's always been something that's helped me. Like it helped me focus my brain. But when you were saying about popping your headphones in, just listening to some music and just kind of help you focus, for me, that's like getting crafty. So like whether it be knitting or crochet or something like that, or making something, that for me is when I can just switch off from everything and really focus on what I'm doing rather than, oh, did I remember to do this? Did I remember to pick this up? Or, oh, did I post this on time on social media and all this kind of stuff? It's like you do have all these things that go through your head, and it can be really hard to kind of just turn off your mind. So even like that journal idea, that was something I've never really thought about doing, but I 100% will go and try it now because it might help just kind of unfold everything that's going on in my mind. And especially for the people that are watching the video, and the young entrepreneurs that we're hopefully inspiring with our conversation, will be able to find some comfort in the fact that they can just take up a book and write down their thoughts, and hopefully that will be a way for them to focus and center themselves a little bit better. I just wanted to briefly mention, obviously, Ella, I did say that you were supported by Bridge to Business during the beginning stages of your business. And back in 2020, you were the winner of the Bridge to Business Local Hero Award, which congratulations on that. How did you feel to win and be recognised for all the hard work that you've done over the years?
It's a bit surreal, I think, because you kind of just get into the rhythm of you just keep going and you just keep trying other things, and you just go on. You don't really expect to be given something like an award for what you feel is like you doing your job. And people like are very, very kind, and they're always like, you must be so proud of yourself, and all of these kind of things. And sometimes it's not that you aren't, you just never really recognize it yourself, or you never really want to turn around and be like, I'm amazing, I'm so good, like look at it, because it's not, I don't think it, I think that is a very Scottish thing as well, like we don't really do that very often.
No, I don't know. I think you're quite right. A lot of people, myself included, I'm very quick to encourage and congratulate other people, but when it comes to myself, oh no.
No, definitely. So when I was like, when first of all being nominated for it, you were like, oh my goodness, and then when you seen what the nomination, like not the person that nominated you wrote about you and things like that, you were just like, oh my goodness, like it's quite overwhelming is the only way that you can almost feel about it. And then to actually, I was sitting there on my laptop with my family and my boyfriend with me, and you're just like, to actually have an award of being appreciated not only for like the work that you did, but for potentially inspiring other people as well, just seems like something that's totally surreal, because you're like, how can what I do potentially inspire other people? But I guess just, I don't know, it was a lovely, lovely experience. It was very surreal at the same time as
Yeah,
well.
I
It
can
still feels
imagine.
like that.
Yeah. I had something similar. Was like last year I won the Enterprise Student of the Year for Bridge to Business. So I
Okay.
completely understand the feeling of not knowing how to react. But it's a fantastic thing because you've done so much hard work and you have been really successful, and you do deserve the credit that's given for that. So like, yeah, sing it from the rooftops. We've done all these amazing things.
I know
Believe
people
in
should
yourself.
learn.
That's the message that we're trying to
Uh-huh.
share.
And people should learn as well a little bit. It's taken me almost 4 years to actually turn around and say to myself, I'm actually really proud of not even like where you are, but like the work that you put in to get there is something that you should recognize yourself, because it is hard, and it's there's a lot of challenges, and there are a lot of businesses, yes, but there's not a lot of people that can actually do what you're trying to do right now, or there's a lot of people that would never ever try. They would rather stay doing what they're doing just now
Yeah.
that they're potentially not happy with and don't enjoy their job. But I do, and many people that are self-employed and have their own businesses and are their own boss, like it is an extremely rewarding thing. As much as it does have stresses, it is a very rewarding job, I
Yeah.
guess.
No, that's fantastic. And it's been amazing to hear everything you've been sharing with us. And I do genuinely think that everyone watching is going to be able to take a lot from this, especially the fact that your journey did start off in a college kind of format, and you kind of grew your idea while you were studying. So I think a lot of the students will be able to relate to that. And I'll hopefully inspire them that they can do it, and they certainly have the capability of going ahead and grasping whatever they can. I just want to say a massive thank you, Lucy, for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and thank you so much for sharing your journey. It's truly inspiring, as I've said, to hear about your business, how it started, and just to hear your passion behind the whole enterprise and journey as well. I know the students watching will be able to take a lot away from the interview as well. So I just want to say a massive thank you to yourself.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on, Megan.
You're very welcome. I also just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who's watching. I hope you have enjoyed the video and the series so far, and stay tuned for some more inspiring #female interviews. And we shall catch you all soon in the next video. So bye everyone.